The sound of shattering glass echoed through the empty house as Michael dropped the framed wedding photo, his trembling fingers unable to hold on to the last physical reminder of what he'd lost. 5 years a widower, raising Emma alone, and today, for the first time, he'd felt something stir in his heart for someone else. The guilt was crushing him. If you've ever felt torn between honoring the past and embracing a future you never planned for, this story might just be for you. Stay with me until the end to discover how Michael finds his way through this impossible choice. If his journey touches your heart, please consider liking this video and subscribing to our channel for more stories that explore the complicated beauty of second chances. Michael Sullivan hadn't planned on being a single father at 34. He hadn't planned on explaining to his 4-year-old daughter why mommy wasn't coming home from the hospital. He certainly hadn't planned on the crushing loneliness that followed him through the empty hallways of their suburban home each night after Emma finally fell asleep. 5 years had passed since Sarah's sudden death, an aneurysm that took her in her sleep, leaving no time for goodbyes. 5 years of Michael learning to braid Emma's hair, attending mother-daughter school events alone, and fielding well-intentioned but painful questions about when he might get back out there. "Daddy, you're burning the pancakes again," Emma said, now 9 years old with her mother's hazel eyes and unfiltered honesty. Michael snapped back to reality, flipping the charred pancake with a sigh. "Sorry, pumpkin. Guess I was somewhere else." "You were thinking about Mom," Emma said matter-of-factly, reaching for the orange juice. It wasn't a question. Michael forced a smile. "Just thinking about how she never burned pancakes." "She burned them all the time," Emma corrected him, the corner of her mouth turning up. "You just don't remember because you thought everything she did was perfect." The observation hit him like a physical blow. When had his daughter become so perceptive? And when had his memories of Sarah begun to idealize into something less human than she'd actually been? "Well, these pancakes are definitely not perfect," he conceded, sliding the slightly blackened breakfast onto Emma's plate. "But they're made with love." Emma rolled her eyes but smiled. "Dad, Ms. Abernathy wants to talk to you after school today." Michael froze. "Is everything okay?" "Your grades." "I'm not in trouble," Emma interrupted. "She just wants to talk about the field trip to the Science Museum. She needs more parent volunteers." Relief washed over him. Between his work as an architectural engineer and single parenting, volunteering for school activities usually fell to the bottom of his priority list. But Emma had been showing real interest in science lately, and he'd been trying to encourage it. "I'll be there," he promised. The elementary school hallways always made Michael feel oversized, like Gulliver in Lilliput. Children's artwork lined the walls, and the scent of glue sticks and crayons hung in the air. He navigated toward Emma's classroom, checking his watch. He was 15 minutes early for the meeting with Ms. Abernathy, but Emma was in after-school chess club, so he had time. The classroom door was ajar, and he could hear a woman's voice inside, not speaking but singing. Quietly, almost to herself. He paused, not wanting to interrupt. The melody was familiar, an old Fleetwood Mac song that Sarah had loved. He knocked gently on the door frame. The singing stopped abruptly. "Sorry to interrupt," he said, stepping into the classroom. The woman at the desk looked up, a slight blush coloring her cheeks. She was younger than he'd expected Emma's 5th-grade teacher to be, maybe early 30s, with dark curly hair pulled back in a loose ponytail and rectangular glasses that framed warm brown eyes. "Mr. Sullivan," she said, standing and extending her hand. "I'm Olivia Abernathy. Emma's told me so much about you." Her handshake was firm, her smile genuine. Something unexpected fluttered in Michael's chest, a sensation so foreign he almost didn't recognize it. "All good things, I hope," he replied, immediately regretting the cliché. "Mostly," she laughed. "Though she did mention you're terrible at French braiding her hair." Michael groaned. "I've watched about 50 YouTube tutorials. My fingers just don't work that way." It took me years to master on my niece, Olivia said. Some skills don't come naturally to anyone. There was something immediately disarming about her, no pretense, no awkward pity that often colored his interactions with women who learned he was widowed. They discussed the upcoming field trip, and Michael found himself volunteering not just to chaperone but to help organize the entire event. Somehow, 30 minutes passed in what felt like 5. Emma mentioned you're an architect? Olivia asked as they wrapped up. Architectural engineer, he corrected. Less glamorous than it sounds. Mostly making sure buildings don't fall down. That sounds pretty important to me, she said. Emma brought in some of your sketches for our unit on design. She's very proud of what you do. The thought of Emma sharing his work with her class created a warm glow in his chest. I had no idea. She talks about you all the time, Olivia said softly. You're doing a wonderful job with her, Mr. Sullivan. Michael, he said. Please. Michael, she repeated, and something in the way she said his name made that unfamiliar flutter return to his chest. As he walked to the chess club room to collect Emma, Michael realized he was smiling, really smiling, for the first time in what felt like years. That night, after Emma was asleep, Michael found himself staring at Sarah's photograph on the mantel. It was from their honeymoon in Greece, her blonde hair whipping in the Mediterranean breeze, her smile radiant. I felt something today, he whispered to the photograph. For someone else. I don't know what to do with that. The silence of the house answered him. 5 years of talking to photographs, to memories, to the empty side of the bed. 5 years of being both mother and father to Emma, of declining setups from well-meaning friends, of telling himself that Sarah had been his one great love and that was enough for one lifetime. But today, in that classroom with its alphabet posters and science projects, something had awakened in him, something he'd thought had died alongside Sarah. Guilt crashed over him in waves. How could he feel this way? How could he betray Sarah's memory? He picked up his phone and called the one person who might understand. It's almost midnight, his brother-in-law's groggy voice answered. Someone better be dying. Sorry, Jack, Michael said. I needed to talk. There was rustling on the other end as Jack presumably sat up in bed. What's going on? Is Emma okay? She's fine. I'm fine. It's just. Michael took a deep breath. I met someone today. I didn't actually meet her, she's Emma's teacher. But I felt something. And now I feel terrible about it. The line was quiet for a moment. Then Jack sighed. You know what Sarah made me promise before that last surgery? When we thought it was just a routine procedure to check on her headaches? Michael's throat tightened. What? She made me promise that if anything ever happened to her, I wouldn't let you become a monk. Those were her exact words. Don't let Michael become a monk, Jack. He's too good at loving people to spend his life alone. Tears sprang to Michael's eyes. She didn't know what was going to happen. No, but she knew you. And she knew you'd do exactly what you've done, put your whole life on hold to raise Emma, to honor her memory. But Michael, loving someone new doesn't dishonor Sarah. She would want this for you. It feels like betrayal, Michael whispered. It's not betrayal to be alive, Michael. And it's definitely not betrayal to feel something for a woman who appreciates your daughter. After hanging up, Michael returned to the mantel and gently touched the edge of Sarah's photograph. I'll always love you, he promised. That will never change. But for the first time in 5 years, he allowed himself to wonder if his heart might be big enough to love someone else too. The Science Museum field trip arrived 2 weeks later. Michael found himself assigned to Olivia's group, along with Emma and 4 other students. As they moved through the exhibits, he watched how Olivia engaged with the children, her genuine enthusiasm for their discoveries, her patience with their questions, the way she knelt to their level to explain complex concepts. "Dad, Ms. Abernathy says I could be an engineer like you someday," Emma said excitedly as they examined a display on bridge construction. "You could be an even better one," he replied, catching Olivia's eye over Emma's head. She smiled at him, and that now familiar flutter returned. During lunch in the museum cafeteria, while the children were distracted with their food, Olivia slid into the seat beside him. "Emma's mathematical thinking is exceptional," she said. "She sees patterns that most kids her age miss completely." Pride swelled in Michael's chest. "She gets that from her mother." Sarah was brilliant with numbers. He'd mentioned Sarah naturally, without the usual tightness in his throat. Olivia nodded, her expression open and interested rather than uncomfortable. "Emma talks about her sometimes," she said. "She told me her mom is watching over her from heaven and would be proud of her science project." Michael swallowed hard. "We try to keep her memory alive." "That's beautiful," Olivia said simply. Then, after a pause, "My father died when I was 12. Cancer. My mom made sure we talked about him all the time, the good and the bad. It helped." The shared understanding in her eyes touched something deep in Michael. Here was someone who knew loss, who understood its contours without needing it explained. "It's hard to know if I'm doing it right," he admitted. Balancing remembering Sarah with moving forward. "From what I can see," Olivia said gently, "you're doing it exactly right." As they shepherded the excited children through the rest of the museum, Michael found himself watching Olivia, the animated way she used her hands when explaining concepts, her genuine laugh at the children's jokes, the quiet competence with which she managed the group. By the time they loaded back onto the school bus, something had shifted in him. The guilt that had been his constant companion was beginning to loosen its grip, making space for something new to grow. "Dad, can Miss Abernathy come to my birthday party?" Emma asked a week later as they prepared dinner together. Michael nearly dropped the pasta strainer. "Your teacher? Why would you want your teacher at your birthday party?" Emma gave him a look that suggested she found him hopelessly dense. "Because she's nice and she likes science like me and she makes you smile." "She makes me smile?" Michael repeated, feeling heat rise to his face. "Yeah. Your real smile, not your sad smile." Emma turned back to the salad she was tossing. "Plus, she doesn't have a husband or kids." I asked. Michael stared at his daughter, momentarily speechless. "Emma Sullivan, you cannot go around asking your teachers personal questions." "I didn't ask if she had a boyfriend," Emma said with exaggerated patience. "That would be inappropriate. I just asked if she had kids because I was wondering if she was a mom. And she said no, she wasn't married and didn't have children, but she had nieces and nephews she loved very much." Michael shook his head, torn between embarrassment and amusement. "Still, honey, we can't just invite your teacher to your birthday party. It's not conventional." "Mom always said conventions were for people without imagination," Emma replied, quoting one of Sarah's favorite sayings with perfect recall. The reference to Sarah caught him off guard. Was this Emma's way of giving permission? Or was he reading too much into a child's innocent request? "I'll think about it," he finally said, which in parent speak usually meant no, but left room for negotiation. Emma, however, took it as a victory. "Great. I'll tell her tomorrow that you're thinking about it." Michael groaned internally. Now he'd have to face Olivia knowing his daughter had essentially tried to set them up. The next parent-teacher conference arrived with Michael feeling unaccountably nervous. He'd changed his shirt twice before leaving the house, a behavior he hadn't exhibited since his first date with Sarah 15 years earlier. "Mr. Sullivan," Olivia greeted him with a warm smile as he entered her classroom. "How are you?" "Please, it's still Michael," he reminded her. "And I'm good. Though I should apologize in advance for whatever Emma might have said about her birthday party." Olivia laughed, the sound brightening the room. "She was quite insistent that I should attend. She mentioned something about a science-themed cake and experiments as party activities." Michael ran a hand through his hair. I'm sorry if that put you in an awkward position. Not at all, she assured him. I was flattered, actually. Emma is a special kid. She is, Michael agreed, his chest swelling with the familiar pride he felt whenever someone recognized his daughter's unique spirit. She gets that from her mother. The words came out automatically, a reflex developed over years. But this time, they felt different, not a barrier he was erecting, but simply a truth he was sharing. Olivia's expression remained open. And from her father, I'd say. Your influence on her is clear in everything from her problem-solving approach to her kindness toward other students. The compliment warmed him. They discussed Emma's academic progress, her social development, her emerging leadership qualities. Throughout the conversation, Michael found himself increasingly aware of Olivia as a person, the way she referenced specific examples of Emma's work, her thoughtful insights into his daughter's learning style, the passion she clearly had for teaching. As the conference wound down, Michael gathered his courage. About Emma's birthday party, if you're not uncomfortable with the idea, we'd genuinely love to have you there. It's next Saturday at the community center. Nothing fancy, just cake and some science experiments for the kids. Olivia's smile reached her eyes. I'd like that very much. Should I bring anything? Just yourself, Michael said, then added with a self-deprecating laugh, and maybe your French braiding skills. I'm still hopeless. It's a date, she replied, then quickly corrected herself. I mean, not a date. Just you know what I mean. The slight flush on her cheeks made something warm unfurl in Michael's chest. I know what you mean, he assured her, though part of him wished it was, in fact, a date. As he walked to his car afterward, Michael realized he hadn't thought about what Sarah would think or how this might be betraying her memory. Instead, he'd simply been present in the moment, connecting with another person who saw and appreciated his daughter, and perhaps, was beginning to see and appreciate him too. Emma's birthday party was a controlled chaos of excited 10-year-olds conducting supervised science experiments. Michael had transformed the community center into a mini laboratory, with stations for creating slime, launching baking soda rockets, and building simple circuits. Olivia arrived early, offering to help set up. She'd brought a gift for Emma, a professional-quality microscope that made his daughter squeal with delight, and a calm presence that steadied Michael's nerves. This is amazing, Olivia said, surveying the room. You've created a whole science museum. I may have gone overboard, Michael admitted. But Emma's been so into science this year, thanks largely to you. I just nurtured what was already there, Olivia replied, helping him arrange safety goggles at each station. This kind of curiosity is innate. As the party progressed, Michael found himself repeatedly drawn to Olivia. She moved effortlessly between helping children with their experiments and chatting with the other parents. Several times, he caught her looking at him, her expression warm and interested. During a quiet moment while the children were eating cake, Michael's neighbor Grace sidled up to him. Emma's teacher is lovely, she observed, following Michael's gaze to where Olivia was laughing with Emma and her friends. And she hasn't taken her eyes off you all afternoon. Michael felt his face warm. We're just friendly. Grace, who had been one of Sarah's closest friends and had watched Michael struggle through grief for 5 years, gave him a gentle nudge. Sarah would approve, you know. She'd like Olivia. The comment, so similar to what Jack had said, loosened something in Michael's chest. You think so? I know so, Grace said firmly. Sarah wanted you to be happy. She told me that, during those last few months when the headaches were getting worse. She made me promise to kick your butt if you spent the rest of your life alone. Michael laughed despite the tightness in his throat. That sounded exactly like Sarah. After the party, when the last guest had left and Emma was